But it's funny because consultants, they market that they fix your problems and that, they have this whole value proposition, but then they don't practice it themselves internally at their organization.
Consulting for us means something entirely different from the corporate meaning of consulting.
You start losing integrity when you just say whatever to get a contract signed and then deal with the rest of the budget later.
Then end up giving that money too, because they're promising something they can't deliver on. And when the customer is unhappy, it falls back on the PM and the team, and then they ask for money back. And then that becomes another problem. So putting a Band-Aid on it isn't going to fix the problem.
Yep.
So having these one-on-one conversations, these intimate relationships with the clients as well, is what we're focused on. It doesn't matter the amount of clients you have. It matters the quality of work that you're producing.
Welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm your host, Jessica Carice, and we have our guest, Nastassia Brown.
Hi.
And today we are going to be talking about redefining consulting culture. So, I have a background in consulting. Nastassia has a background in consulting. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. All right. Let's get into it.
For sure.
All right. So how did you even get into consulting? How did you even find out about it?
So for me, I never knew what consulting was to begin with. I got into it pretty much around a year ago. And that was my first project management role. Before that, I was more process improvement. So stepping into project management, I immediately saw where there was dysfunction. And that's what kind of pivoted me to where we're at right now, right? So doing project management for a little under a year, recognizing that there was a lot of brokenness within the team culture, the corporate culture as well, and recognizing that I didn't want to be a part of that anymore. You know what I mean? So
that's an interesting point that you say about you go from process improvement, which was an internal role, and then when you stepped foot into the consulting world, all you saw was dysfunction. But it's funny because consultants, they market that they fix your problems and that, they have this whole value proposition, but then they don't practice it themselves internally at their organization.
So it sounds good on paper, but 9 times out of 10, it's not executed the way it should be.
No. And then for me, so I worked for a management consulting firm for a couple years, and then pivoted back and forth in between internal roles and process improvement as well. So I did a lot of work in procurement, supply chain, and then dabbling with consulting from a data analytics standpoint, and then with project management standpoint. So it's interesting with the consulting, because it's a whole, you have a team for each part of the sales funnel, right? And it's like a game of telephone where
the message gets broken. Each person it gets to.
Yes. Each person it gets to, it becomes more and more broken, right? So it's I always say this, it reminds me of the Henry Ford factory model that they're trying to do with consulting. And I don't know why everyone thinks that this is
a one size fits all, and it's not.
It's not.
No.
It's not at all. But it's you have all these innovate, all these people who are very smart. I've met very, very, very smart people who work for consulting firms. But it's no one's taking the time to say, hey, let's change how we do things so that it makes more sense and so that there's less chaos and confusion.
Yeah, instead of recognizing or even just sitting down with these people that are doing the work too, they're always the afterthought, and be okay, well, once the project kicks off, these are the people we need. No, those people need to be a part of the conversation, because they're the ones that are carrying out these tasks that have all these issues. So for the tasks to be corrected, the people doing the work need to be a part of the conversation from the very beginning, and then throughout the duration of the project. You know what I mean? So consulting for us means something entirely different from the corporate meaning of consulting, right? Because we've been on both ends.
Yes.
So
Yeah, and then even on the receiving side of like an engagement, like during my time with Cisco, I was on the receiving end of a McKinsey
Mm-hmm.
engagement, and it's like they weren't adapting to the Cisco culture,
Mm.
and so it's like they have all these fancy words and the jargon,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like they don't take the time to adapt and really learn the culture and see what would be most effective to implement whatever strategy they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like even all the presentations that they provided was just all of their standard framework words. It was not relevant to Cisco. So in order to even try to adopt that,
Mm-hmm.
um, people in Cisco are like, what does this mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's two different, like each company has the way that they speak,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And so like these consulting firms, they always say like, oh, we put the client first, oh this, then the third, but it's like you're using your same standard framework that you use for the client down the street.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's I definitely see the need for change, and that was the reason why I started up J. Carice and Company. That's why that's why I started up J. Carice and Company. Because I see the need for all that change, right? And so just reflecting back on my experiences and
Mm-hmm.
hearing your experiences,
Right.
it's like, okay, how can we truly be innovative with
Mm-hmm.
how we work with our clients? You know, the one thing I've noticed so far is just physically being present
Yes.
with the client
Mm-hmm.
and sitting with them day to day, spending time. I think trying to do things remote is good for some parts of a project or
Right.
some parts of an engagement, but not end to end. Absolutely
Mm-hmm.
not. And I think that's how things used to be actually before COVID. It's like everybody was on site.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's on site, and so now um, we're trying to do this hybrid way of working, and I think that's probably what's causing much more chaos in consulting, trying to do it remotely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that human piece is missing. And I think that that's important, especially when you have like a huge corporation with these ridiculous budgets that they think they can accomplish the sun, moon, and stars with like 50 grand, and it's like a $5 million project because the whole company needs an overhaul, right? But because they want to go to the shareholders and say, well, this project is only going to cost us 20,000 for this fiscal year, when really and truly it's like a 5 year span of constant improvements that need to be done. But the consulting piece of it is to let it be polished and presentable to say, yes, we can put a stamp of approval on it. But
Yeah.
then when the project managers come in, we come into a problematic situation with a team of developers that have no idea what the true expectation is, because
Yeah.
when the project plan is going to be done, it's impossible to fit all of the work that's within scope of
Mm-hmm.
a project to do within such a short space of time. So that's something too
Yeah.
that's missed a lot in, the predominant consulting firms, where they overpromise what can actually be delivered within such a short space of time.
Yeah. Yeah. They always say I have the slogan like um over promise and over deliver.
Mhm.
But y'all are not over delivering.
Not possible, because then the work life balance is affected when we're over promising. We're not
Yes.
considering that the team of developers are in different time zones, because now, we're talking about people that are remote, and a lot of people that are remote moved. They've,
Yes, they did
moved
move.
overseas. So there are different factors among the team. And then as a project manager, we have to manage the people on the team. And if we're not able to even wrap our minds around what the work is that they're supposed to do, how can we expect them to
Yeah.
deliver?
It's true. It's true. It's true. I remember for one of my engagements, um, you would think it was a simple engagement, right? It was just migrating from Confluence to SharePoint,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the way how they scoped this project, like they didn't even know how many confluence spaces the client had to begin with. So
Mm-hmm.
you're saying this project's going to take, 4 or 5 months, but you didn't factor in the amount of sites that they have to migrate.
Mm-hmm.
Like we didn't really know the true scope of the project until we got in there and we're like, "Oh, what is this?"
Mm-hmm.
So it's like with the sales process, I don't know, everyone's just so eager to try to make money. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't blame them, but you start losing integrity when you just say whatever to get a contract signed and then deal with the rest of the budget later. Like
And
that.
then end up giving that money too because they're promising something they can't deliver on. And when the customer is unhappy, it falls back on the PM and the team, and then they ask for money back. And then that becomes another problem. So it's like a
Yeah.
constant cycle of the dysfunction from the get
Yeah.
go through inception to execution to.
It's just crazy because, like, even where we were before,
Mm-hmm.
they would, talking to the VP or whatever, he'd be like, "You're the project manager now. You're responsible for this project." What kind of pressure is that? You mean
Unrealistic
you mean I have to be responsible
for the
for
mess you started. Yeah.
yeah, what do you mean I'm responsible for the project? No, you're sales guys. Your whole upstream team is responsible
Mm-hmm.
for this project because you basically are handing me fire to start with.
Mm-hmm. Which is with our business model at J. Careers, we recognize that that was a niche where it doesn't matter the amount of clients you have, it matters the quality of work that you're producing.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of saying, okay, well, we're going to fix one problem,
Yeah.
instead of putting a band aid on it, no, we're going to go to the root issue.
Yes.
Like, let's figure out exactly what your company offering is. And then we're going to go from there to attack each problem instead of
Mm-hmm.
just putting a band-aid on this specific issue. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
putting a band-aid on it isn't going to fix the problem.
Yep.
So having these one-on-one conversations, these intimate relationships with the clients as well is what we're focused on. Not
Yes.
so much the numbers, but more so much the quality of work, because when our clients do well, we do well. So
Yeah.
it's it goes hand in hand.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. And like even doing some work, for example, like with my husband's music
Mhm.
school, right? It's when you're inside of a business and you're just seeing everything end to end, like there's no way you can turn a blind eye and not say you recognize like, okay, there's something going on here.
Mhm.
It's like my responsibility as a consultant to say, hey, we need to address this, but this is where it is in the layer of priority, right?
Right.
And then for us to address this, these are my initial thoughts. Um, and maybe even give the client something to chew on, something to
Right.
for them to look into as well, right? Because
Mhm.
there's this the cost or the idea of the budget, right? So it's your responsibility to give like a whole end to end evaluation
Yep.
of what you see. Our engagement will be focused on this right now,
Right.
but
Let's bookmark that for the next project.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So either you can take this up if you feel like you have the team members to do it and I can
Mhm.
coach, right? If you
Right.
want to save on costs,
Mhm.
or we'll just, air tag it for a future engagement. But it's as a consultant, it's your responsibility to be honest about everything you see within an organization
Mhm.
and come up with a structured plan or even a structured outline of this is what needs to be addressed. This is how I would address it. Here are some other ways to address it so that you can truly fix the organization end to end with your outside perspective.
And be honest about the upfront costs, because that's a huge part that's missing too, because they don't want it to sound too much to the client. They want to make sure the client, signs off on the document to say, "Hey, this sounds good. This number is good because this is within our budget." Be honest, and it's important to have those like that honesty with the client, because then they're going to be like, well, they're not going to, under promise or over promise, and then 2 months down the line they're going to come back with another amount and be like, well, this is what it's no. Be upfront and honest from the
Yeah.
beginning, because I think that's always the best way to go, and it builds trust in the relationship. That's a huge part too.
Yeah.
Like
It
building
does.
that trust within the customer relationship is
Yeah.
super important, because then all the other issues, when they do come up, they're going to have that confidence to know, well, this is someone that's going to be honest with me,
Yeah.
whether it's a good or a bad, worst case scenario.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
consulting for us is definitely a holistic approach
Yes.
instead of just being, again, numbers driven.
Yeah, like you should feel like you're part of the team as a
Mm-hmm.
consulting firm. Like you and your client, you should feel like you shouldn't even feel like this is a vendor or this is a client. You should feel like one team
Yeah.
because that's the way you'll have the most effective results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think of it too as like going in a store and seeing like a piece of clothing on the floor and you just walk over it because you don't work there. No, you pick it up because you
Mhm.
see it needs to be done.
Yeah.
And I feel like the humanistic part of it is missing from today's consulting as well, which goes back
Yeah.
to the whole relationship building and being genuine from that perspective as well.
Yeah.
Like treating each other as human beings, because at the end of the day, we are, you know what I mean? The overall health of myself goes into the work that I do, whether they want to say, well, leave your home life at the door. No, naturally you're going to bring it into any professional
Yeah.
setting that you're going to be in. So
Mhm.
if there is no work life balance, then that itself already sets the project up for
Yeah.
failure.
Yeah.
Like it's unrealistic to say we're going to work from 8 to 8 p.m. For what? What are we
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah, yeah. And most of that time, like working from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or 9 to 9 or whatever hours, half of it is because the project was set up wrong to begin with, right?
Yeah.
So like if you take out those like ego driving factors like trying to just cut a deal just because you want to cut a deal and really taking a step back and be like, okay, let me be honest and let me do what's right, the project is much more likely to start off with success. Everyone is much more likely to have regular working hours.
Mm-hmm.
And your consulting team isn't going to burn out and become miserable and everything, right? You hire consultants because of their brain and
Mm-hmm.
because of their, specialty and what they're trying to deliver. But if you're working them to the ground with every single engagement, the value of your consultant is like you shouldn't even be consulting, right? You need to make sure you're okay.
Yeah.
You need to make sure you're not burnt out. You need to
Mm-hmm.
make sure your brain is at peak performance so that you can deliver your best self.
Exactly. Yep. I agree. So that's our experience with large consulting firms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And would you say J. Carice is more a boutique style?
Yes, it's definitely more boutique style.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's funny because it's like you go back and forth between, having large goals to become a larger consulting firm, but at the same time, it's like, how do you keep that secret sauce of
Mm-hmm.
when you're smaller,
Right.
right? Because like with the politics, I don't care about politics. Like, if you don't like something, tell me, right? Don't be passive aggressive and whatever. But if you're not going to like something, you need to have concrete reasons, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, with a large corporate, there's just so much bureaucracy. I don't know. Maybe it's because everyone wants their share of allocation of budget or something or whatever.
But those people always bring their personal lives into the building anyway.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do.
Or if they're friends with
Oh,
someone.
let's not get started. That's a whole other topic. That's a whole other topic.
Yeah, because it's like, where we were before, like so much things could have been changed if they
Yeah.
just opened up the decision making circle to people who weren't friends,
Mm-hmm.
right? People who are friends, you're in your bubble and
Yeah.
you're not going to want to listen to anybody who's not part of your bubble, and so you're missing out on valuable things that could be very changing
Mm-hmm.
in a good way. So
And you find that those older companies too, they don't even focus on training and development until it's too
no,
late.
yeah,
Because a lot of people that we reported to, they didn't even have a PMP.
no,
And that was something I learned like after the fact. I'm like, wait, I thought they were mentors within the group. What do you mean they don't have their certification? So
yeah,
yes, it's just a piece of paper, but it also ties to, your overall like theoretical knowledge of what it is that you're trying to do,
mm-hmm,
with a client. So
mm-hmm,
not just experience, because then why would we need to go to school? You know what I mean? Like there's still traditional learning that needs to be done to cement that part of
Yeah.
consulting.
Yeah.
And that was something that was just being implemented like last year. And the company is how old? Like
Yeah, it's
super
pretty.
old. It's
Yeah.
one of the, you know, the big guys. So
Yeah.
for that to be something that's they're just doing, it says a lot about
Yeah.
large consulting firms.
Yeah. 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 It's funny because like maybe I don't know if there's a huge difference between the cultures of like tech consulting firms
Mm-hmm.
and non-tech consulting, but it's like the way how they treat us, we were literally like a money bag,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you need to make sure you're billing all your
Yeah.
time, all your time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, okay, if I'm billing 40 hours a week on a client engagement, but I'm working more than 40 hours, how am I going to have time to really truly have learning and development, right? They didn't, like, even the learning that they did have outside of just, PMP, like
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't, it was so surface level.
It wasn't practical, and it wasn't something that could be applicable to any of the work that we was doing. It was
Yeah.
just more so take take this off because it's something that's supposed to be done, and something you could do on like your yearly review to say you've done this
Yeah.
as training and development, when really and
Yeah.
truly it's not something you can apply as something you gain knowledge from. So it was
Yeah.
like very, very surface level, and not situational or real life experience that you could actually have with a client.
Yeah. I think the different departments, I did notice different departments had different levels of emphasis of training. For
Mm-hmm.
example, I noticed like the more dev tech
Mm-hmm.
departments, they made sure that their people got certifications and stuff. Like make sure
Mm-hmm.
you keep getting your certifications and things like that. And I think that the company paid for it. But like our department for project management, um, yeah, there wasn't anything for us.
No, there wasn't. So,
The
and that
yeah.
brings us to another part too, where I think it's important to segment the PM career, because there's so many roles that can be,
It's true.
taken on. Like you don't have to be a project manager on a project.
No.
You have like a customer success manager, which in our experience, that the CSM wasn't who they were supposed to be. Like they would throw us under the bus, and that's not what consulting is supposed to be. You're
Yeah.
not supposed to like just agree with the client because the client is always right. Like, no,
Yeah.
100% no.
What's funny? Like I had one client success manager who was also like a developer on the project as well.
Really?
There's so much conflict of interest. So then like the guy defaulted into like his developer,
Mm.
and then the relationship just turned so sour. It got so weird. Like I don't know, the client success manager role. I don't know.
And that's a huge part of consulting too. Like, who are the people that are going to be solving? Like, who are the people that are going to be a part of the solution for the client? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, are we integrating the correct people? Like, are we
Yeah.
bringing in the correct subject matter experts?
Yeah.
Are these people really subject matter experts, or are they in their roles because of who they know? You know what I
That's
mean?
true. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Um yeah, it's I'm just like thinking about just all the dysfunction behind it all. Like, why does there have to be dysfunction? Like, because at the end of the day, everybody just wants to do a good job too, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
people want to enjoy their work. They want to
Mm-hmm.
enjoy what they do.
Yeah.
They want to enjoy where they work too. And it's like, why is that so hard to achieve?
Yeah. And then because you don't have anyone looking to, in terms of, they don't know what they're doing either. So it's like you're looking
Yeah.
for guidance from someone that's also misled, that's also, not really knowledgeable of their own role. So they're not going to be able to motivate or train you to
Yeah.
go to where you need to be either. So that's
Yeah.
also a huge part. Like there are so many dysfunctions within current consulting, and a lot of people want to go into PM, and I'm like, when I see that, I'm
Yeah.
like, you don't even know what you're asking for. Like,
Yeah.
yes, the compensation is great, but if you're not someone that's going to genuinely enjoy dealing with people, and
Solving
what comes with
problems.
dealing with people is personalities, their own experiences, their own nuances.
Like everybody, I don't know why it's so hard to accomplish, just providing a nice place to work. Because at the end of the day, people do want to progress in their careers.
Mhm.
People want to feel like they're growing. People want to feel appreciated. People want different opportunities to explore even different roles.
Mhm.
Um, we just touched the surface with the different roles that there's available in project management, and we were starting to talk about the different roles just even with the consulting engagement.
Mhm.
So I think that's definitely something we can pick up on the next time.
Yeah.
And we didn't even talk about, diversity in consulting. So that's another thing that we're gonna pick up.
Because
But
it's such a male centric field. It's like women are now just finding or footing in a space that's been male dominant for so long.
hmm
Because even like the executive team where we were before,
yeah,
it was like if there were 10 people on the team, nine of them were men.
yeah,
It was maybe like one female,
yeah,
maybe, or two.
yeah. I think like for my one of my larger engagements, there's probably maybe 3 to 4 females
Mm-hmm.
in a group of like 26
Yeah.
people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's definitely something we're gonna dive into and talk about the nitty gritty of that. Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts related to that. So this was
Yes.
fun.
I had fun too, for
Yeah,
sure. And these
yeah.
conversations are important, you know what I mean?
hmm
Especially for, our generation now that they're so, I want to say, strong headed when it comes to being a part of a healthy corporate work culture.
hmm
And again, everyone wants to get into tech because of the compensation that gets tied to it. But it's super important to educate,
Yeah,
to
and give
provide
the
real
real.
life experiences
Yeah,
because we've had real experiences, and that's what we're going to share with you.
yeah.
And with J. Carice, that's what we want to offer, a holistic
hmm
approach to consulting.
Right. Yep. And Um, the one last thing that I wanted to add, and it just slipped my mind because I got distracted by my dog.
That's okay. We'll get dog lovers to watch all the time
Yeah,
to see
right.
Dingo.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll be digging into more stuff on the next one. Thank
Bye.
you.